that college of your dreams, or anything, it is short-lived, it's momentary, and after that you jump onto another pleasure. Yeah, this is how there are a lot of people who jump from one relationship to another because the honeymoon phase ends. And that's not happiness. That's very painful, jumping from one pleasure till it becomes boredom, frustration, and alienation, and then jumping to another pleasure. Yeah, that's not happiness. Second, happiness is not minimizing pain. So many of us believe that happiness is absence of negative emotions. It couldn't be further from truth. Yeah? In fact, so many people suffer because they try to avoid this one fundamental truth that Buddha gave long time back, which is life is suffering. I'm going to tell you 4 things, 4 traumas that all of you here either have gone through or will go through in your life. One is you'll lose someone. You'll lose a relationship. Third, you might have an illness. Or fourth, you'll be fired from a job. What is well-being then? Is well-being telling you and selling you that you'll never experience suffering? No. It is teaching you how to deal with that suffering. You should deal with suffering and not run away from your suffering because of 2 reasons again. One, the more you run away from your problems, the worse it becomes. J.K. Rowling actually said that when you try to numb your pain, it comes back in worse form when you finally actually feel it. How many of you here have lied to someone, significant other in your life? And then, okay, that was rhetorical, but thank you for participating, thank you. How many of you lied to cover that lie? How many of you lied to cover the lie to cover that lie? Where do you end up? Where do you end up? You end up not realizing truth kya tha. Not realizing what was true, what was false, what did you make up, and you regret, you feel that you shouldn't have lied in the first place. You could have just solved the problem at the first stage itself. And that's what happens when you run away from problems and suffering, that's what happens. What do you think is the most non-biodegradable object on this planet? Plastic? Something like that? It's grief. It's grief. You bury that grief and, it's not going to go away. So yes, addressing your painful emotions is part of experiencing sustainable long-term happiness. Moving on, some of you might actually say, but how practical is it to get away from, obliterate this human tendency, this very natural human tendency to maximize pleasure and minimize pain? All of us have that. We are not some sadhu mahatma that we can run away from that. I agree. But the point is not, that you need to make minimize pleasure to 0 and, start addressing all your pains in life. No. It's how much and when. It's learning what are the pleasures you need to give up and when, and it's learning what are the painful incidents and issues in your life that you need to address and when. So something as simple as realizing that when to give up an unhealthy lifestyle and adopting a healthy lifestyle instead. Yeah? It's telling yourself when you need to stop lying to yourself about certain things and coming face to face with the truth. Yeah? How many of you heard here, and this is not a rhetorical question, that happiness lies within you? Yeah, everyone's heard that happiness lies within you, and I'm sure in your biology classes you've done the anatomy of the body, but happiness wala kahin organ aisa kuch dikhaya nahi diya. So where is it? Where does happiness lie? Happiness doesn't lie inside you. It lies in pursuing what is inside of you. Yeah? What does that mean? So there are some people here who would enjoy running a marathon or enjoy playing a sports activity, participating in it over and above having a 1 kg chocolate cake. Or there are people who would love to start a small business project with friends instead of buying an iPhone or something. Some of you are students here, so you would love to take part and start some kind of a theater club or some kind of a maths club in your schools, in your colleges. And most of all, the last example actually, some of you are parents over here and some of you are, of course, have parents. So this point that raising children can be much more enjoyable, much more satisfying experience than you can go ask your parents. Raising children is a lot of suffering. But if you go ask your parents, they will still do that all over again. Now, what is common between these activities? Some people are happier in a war than in a wedding. Some people are happier doing work than partying. Why is that? What kind of happiness is that actually? Yeah? What is common between all these activities is that at the face of it, they're not pleasurable. They will come they do come with sense of anger, frustration, sadness, despair also. But most importantly, what is also common between these activities that I've just mentioned, for example's sake, is that they can be very meaningful and very, very enriching activities. They can tell you who you are, what you like, what kind of person you are, what are your purposes, what are your strengths, what are your limitations, what are your goals, what are your talents. They can actually tell you who you are, your realistic, your authentic, your true self is. Yeah? Now, just quickly ending it up with one metaphor that I thought might reach out to the youth of the nation. How many of you have read Harry Potter over here? Yeah? The antagonist of the series, Harry Potter, Lord Voldemort, thought he can get happiness through one means, which was immortality. He thought immortality can make him, there was nothing more than immortality he wanted. What did he do to get immortality? He destroyed his soul into 7 Horcruxes, 7 pieces, and stored it in different places. Was he happy after that? No. He spent his entire life, ironically, the Horcruxes were supposed to protect him. He ended up spending his entire life trying to protect those Horcruxes. What is that Horcrux in your life that you've been chasing for so long, but it's at the cost of your own self-destruction, at the cost of alienating your own self? Every time you move away from your realistic, your true, your authentic self, either because the lures of pleasures and maza in life are too much, or because the pain that comes with, or the suffering that might come with some of these activities that you enjoy may be too much for you, you choose to be unhappy. Yeah? Now, just closing, just one thing, happiness definitely is the ultimate destination for sure. But happiness cannot be pursued by maximizing pleasure or minimizing pain. You must pursue, the journey to happiness is pursuing your own self, finding what you like. The speaker over here, the girl who came up and she said, I doodle, irrespective of how many likes I'll get, irrespective of what comments I'll get. I doodle because I enjoy it. Find out what is it that you'll enjoy, and happiness shall ensue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think what you said around the fact that we're looking at long-term sustainable happiness, I think that's amazing. Because we're all otherwise hunting for the big happy. And the big happy, we don't even know what it is. And today in the same workshop I was talking about in the morning, I asked one of the kids, I said, okay, what is something good that happened to you today or that you're happy about or thankful for? And it took them a long time because, they didn't score amazing marks in the paper or they didn't get into some national level competition. And the original definition of happy was just that. And then one child raised her hand and she said, ma'am, बहुत गर्मी थी सुबह. And fortunately, वो ठेला लेके माजा वाला खड़ा था. And I had a ठंडा bottle of maza and she said, I felt so happy. And I think we forget to hold on to and build the narrative of all the different kinds of happiness that the world gives us or that we take from the world and just focus on that sort of one. So I think sustainable long-term happiness, I think that's phenomenal. And now we move to Divya, who's going to take us into the section of talking about identity, which is what I think youth is centered around. And yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to take your lead, Ishita, and step away from the table. So there are approximately about 100 of us here right now, or 150. Do you know how many what was the last census of the youth of Indian population? 35.6 crores, aged between 15 to 24. So we have the power to bring about a lot of change. I'm going to tackle some issues which people don't speak about very openly. So I'm going to request MHFI volunteers to walk around, and if there's any question that somebody wants to pose but they're feeling like they don't want to out themselves right now, with that question you can write on a chit and hand it over to an MHFI volunteer, and we can take it up in the discussion session. So I openly identify as a queer individual. Now you ask, what is queer? Queer is For a time, I thought, oh, I'm straight, because as you grow up in kindergarten, people ask you, who's your boyfriend? And then you don't know whom to pick. And then you watch House MD and you see Olivia Wilde and you're like, wow. And then everybody tells you, no, everybody likes Olivia Wilde. And then you have a rediscovery phase. And then you realize,